All right, we're live. What's going on? Long time no see. I think this is the longest span of days that I've gone without doing a live stream in the past month or two. I think it's been almost a week since the last stream. Oh wait, what am I saying? Wow, I can't even keep track anymore. No, I just did one actually a couple days ago, didn't I? Man, I must be accelerating too hard. I don't think I'm losing a sense of time. It's probably because I was in London all day yesterday. And when I go to London for the whole day and come back late at night, I feel like I went into a time warp. Right. Okay. Back to reality. What was I going to say? No, I'm not addicted to anything. I don't use meth at all. I've never done meth. But what was I going to say? Yeah. Thanks for asking. How was the interview? So yesterday I went to London early in the morning at like 8 a.m. to give an interview at the Al Jazeera TV studios about this research I've done recently, and it was really interesting. The dude was cool, but it was kind of fascinating because, I mean, as most of you know, Al Jazeera is like pretty lefty, progressive kind of outlet, and the dude who was interviewing me was definitely very lefty, and he basically, I mean, he didn't even. It shows you how kind of left wing the social sciences are in general. That he didn't even ask me what I thought about the questions he wanted to ask me, like before we started recording. He and in fact he didn't even look at my. I don't think he looked into my background too hard, even before he invited me online. Because as soon as I got there, he was just kind of shooting the breeze with me, kind of like just assuming that I would have a set of responses that were, kind of like in line with Chomsky and kind of structural critiques of the media and capitalism in a kind of lefty academic vein. He was kind of from the get-go, without even really trying to ask me what I think or test me and kind of sense out the person he's dealing with. He was assuming that I fit this kind of particular mold of like a lefty academic. And I think it's really telling. I don't blame him. He was a cool guy. I understand it. It was because nowadays you kind of can just assume if you find, an academic social scientist on the internet who's, writing about politics, who's like a well-employed academic at like a well-known academic institution, you kind of can just wager and presume that, he has a pretty standard kind of repertoire of left-wing canned responses, more or less like within a certain, call it an Overton window or whatever you want. And so before we started recording, I was like, I might have some thoughts on these questions that might, be a little bit different than what you were expecting. Should we maybe have a little rehearsal first? I don't want to catch you off guard or something like that. I think I said something to that effect. And he was sort of like, okay, yeah, sure. That's right. And hey, Evangeline. Hey, Lucas. Hey, Dark Phoenix. What's up, people? Thanks for saying hi. Thanks for hanging out. And he was sort of like, yeah, okay. What? He seemed a little worried. And then I was like, it's nothing too bad or anything, but I just said to him, some of my thoughts are some of my honest kind of perspectives on the questions that you're going to ask me. By the way, to remind you, I talked about this the other day, but the questions were related to, the rise of kind of right-wing populist figures such as Nigel Farage in the UK or Tommy Robinson in the UK, and then people like, Steve Bannon and Trump in the US. He wanted to basically just ask me questions about those things and the role that media plays in that, because that's what some of my research lately has been about. And I kind of said to him, well, basically, I have some sympathy for some of the talking points that are sometimes associated with more right-leaning figures. But I mean, I was like, I did the kind of wink, wink, like, don't worry, I'm in the same club as you, kind of thing. I was like, I'm a lefty dude. Like, I've been involved in leftist activism for a long time. So I'm not like some sort of like Tommy Robinson lover. I'm not here to like do that exactly. But I do, my honest perspectives are maybe a little bit different than what you might expect. And so we talked it out, and he was basically like, before we started recording. We recorded for like a 30 minutes. He just asked me questions with the camera on me for like 30 minutes. That was the first time I ever did anything like that, to be honest. And he was a little skeptical and kind of like but at the end, I mean, he said he thought it was really good. He thought it was really interesting. Oh yeah, sorry. I'm just doing a little warm up, getting things started. Michael will be joining in like 5 minutes. I'm not going to do the full like 30-minute kind of thing. I'm just giving you a quick recap on my life, I guess, which is what I do. Yeah. So Michael Siebert will be in. I'll send him a link in like 4 minutes. So Dark Phoenix, you don't have 20 minutes to run to the store, but honestly, you have time because anyone can just rewatch it. So yeah, just to finish that story real quick. At the end, he was like, even though I gave him a lot of pushback to his questions, and it was a little unexpected for him probably on Al Jazeera. From a type of person like me, he said it was good. He thought it was good. I don't know. You never know with journalists. Like they might, their editor might say, no, this is crap, or they might cut it and they might twist my words to make me look like an idiot. That's like something you're just inevitably vulnerable to. But yeah, we did 30 minutes of recording a video. He said it'll be out Saturday. So I'll keep you posted. I'm curious. I'm curious to see how it looks or what it amounts to. But anyway, yeah, I did that yesterday. It was kind of fun, actually. You guys know me. I like talking, so it was an interesting experience. And that's that. And then I spent the whole day hanging out with people in London, and it was cool. All right. So I think that's it for now. I'm not going to do my whole 30-minute rant about my life and topics of interest to me. That's a little update on what I've been doing, what I did yesterday. And I guess very briefly, real quickly, one thing I want to just say, what's up, Gullfire, is horrified. Lucas, you're horrified to hear social sciences are stuffed full of communists. Well, it's true. Honestly, there's not that many communists. It's mostly like very bourgeois leftists who, wouldn't go to an activist meeting if they were forced to. One other thing I want to say before I bring in Michael is just, yeah, no rush. Cool. Is my subscriber count is growing, which I'm very grateful for. That's very exciting. It's just very, inspiring and motivating when people are, steadily kind of increasing their attention to this sort of stuff that I'm doing. It's a positive sign that people are interested in it. And also I've been getting a lot of comments, like DMs and replies and stuff like that. Yeah, you can, Oswald, you can send questions at any time. If anyone wants to ask Michael questions in the chat, I try to basically monitor the chat and I'll send them to Michael. And yeah, you can ask questions anytime. Yeah, so I was just gonna say, like, basically these live streams are kind of taking off a little bit. I don't know what the upper ceiling of a possible popular interest is. Like, I don't know how many people there are that would be interested in ultimately at the highest level, like the highest quantity possible of people out there in existence that would enjoy watching these videos that I'm doing and these conversations that I'm having about very fringe topics. But at least for right now, every time I do one, I get a handful of messages, private messages or replies or whatever, from people saying that they really like watching these and encouraging me to keep doing it. So I just wanted to share that with you all, and that's really awesome. It's inspiring and motivating for me. So and yeah, I'm almost at the 1,000 subscriber count, which is fun and, again, validating and encouraging. So so basically the reason I'm sharing this is just to say that so far the results have been positive. People seem to be into it. I'm into it. I'm having fun. And so I'm going to make this a priority to continue this. Like, once the semester starts back up in late September, and I get busier, I'm going to have to kind of like make some adjustments and change my priorities about what I'm able to spend time on and what I'm not able to spend time on. But this has been really fun, and I would consider it successful so far as an experiment over the summer. And I'm going to really hustle to figure out how to make it, how to keep doing at least, like, hopefully, like, I feel like a reasonable aim is to do 2 live streams a week throughout the semester. Even I think I can do it. It's not that taxing and it's fun, and people seem to be into it. So that's my goal. At the very least, I'm going to somehow find a way to keep these going throughout the semester, even when I'm busy. So, yeah, stay tuned. We're not going to end this, is what I'm saying. We're not cutting off these live streams just because I get busy during the semester. I'm going to find a way to keep it going. So stay with me, and we might do some more IRL streams. We'll see. I gotta see about that. I'll let you know. All right, let's move into things. I don't want to keep Michael waiting any longer, and I don't want to keep the eager, highly interested audience who has a strong appetite for more of Michael Siebert's ideas and thoughts. So let's do this. Michael, hang tight. I'm about to send you a link in Twitter DMs. There you are. Oh, wait. No, sorry. Never mind. That's the watch page. Hang on. Take this one. Yeah, there you go. All right. So Michael Siebert should be with us any minute at his convenience. Hexozoros, thank you for the kind words. I'm going to keep these going. I appreciate your interest. All right, there's Michael. Ooh, very mysterious. He doesn't even have the avatar. He just has mysterious blue man. How you doing, Michael? Me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
I'm not hearing you, so you might have to adjust something, but take your time.
Let's see.
No worries. This ain't Joe Rogan.
Let's see here.
If you click the gearbox, that can help you maybe select the right microphone.
How about now?
Oh, you hear him. Oh, okay. Hang on. Hang tight. My sound might be messed up.
You getting anything?
Oh, I got you. Sorry, my bad, dude. My volume was just off.
No, you're good.
Rookie mistake. What's going on, Michael? How are you today?
Oh, I'm pretty all right. You caught me early. I got to go to work in like an hour, so making it work.
Fair enough. Yeah, we'll squeeze it in. Thank you for making the time to talk with me.
Yeah, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm interested to pick your brain and to get to know you a little bit better. So thank you for squeezing me in before work. That there are advantages to that. Like, it's kind of good to get that early morning brain power, I think.
No, yeah. I'm feeling hyped. I feel like the rest of the day is going to be downhill from here. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. So my initial question, we'll kick things off. I'll give you a softball, a very modest, simple, immediately straightforward, probably easy to answer question. So Montana, broke or woke?
Broke.
Okay. Right. So one of the things we're going to talk about, and we don't have too much time, so it probably makes sense to just focus our conversation on your recent article.
Sure.
Because it's obviously something that you're very interested in. You're from Montana, and it seems that you've been a close observer of the, let's call it the interesting political polarization that's happening in the Pacific Northwest and in Montana in particular. So yeah, this is something you know a lot about. You're from there. This is something you seem to care a lot about, and your article in Jacobite recently, seems to have been well received. Although you also, I think, got some pushback from other parts of the Twitter sphere. We might be able to get into that, but maybe just to kick things off, could you give us a kind of informal, personal summary of the idea behind the article?
Yeah. So basically, the way I had pitched it to Mariani back in the day was essentially that it was attempting to make an argument that, like, if ecofascism and quote unquote deceleration or whatever were to make some sort of like physical appearance anywhere in the actual world, that it would make sense for it to occur in this kind of upper Mountain West, sort of Pacific Northwest area of the country. And I think that's where some of the pushback came from, is just with that premise in general. Because I think it was read in a lot of different ways. I always intended it to be sort of an explanatory piece that maybe just made some kind of tentative predictions, but I think it kind of took on a life of its own, as these things tend to do.
And who were the people that got upset with you?
Oh, just Rose Twitter kind of people.
Rose Twitter meaning like the DSA and
like DSA type folks. And that's not, and not to not to diminish their concerns. I mean, I understand that, you know, fascism is a big scary thing, regardless of what iteration it is. But yeah, and we can, I'm sure we can get into the criticisms of it a little bit, you know, later. But
Well, basically, I mean, anything that's going to create like new online beefs between me and other types of political communities would be very valuable for increasing the salience and the audience of the show. So I definitely encourage any of that if you want to.
that's all it's about, doing numbers. But yeah, the article, basically, the main point that it kind of makes is, you know, there's sort of this, like, in what to my mind is sort of a perfect storm of circumstances that exist in these in this area in particular. And, you know, a couple of those things are particularly in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, what we consider the Upper Mountain West, the Dakotas. These areas all kind of have a similar sort of ideological underpinning, I guess, where it's almost sort of, there's kind of a, I don't want to say nationalistic pride, but that's what I compare it to in the article, for, you know, the state itself. And that's particularly true in Montana. There's a lot of, and, you know, alongside that comes a lot of really intense kind of isolationist rhetoric. You know, and what I say in the article is, you know, like, most of the time that just comes out as like, well, you know, we have to keep California tourists out. But more recently, that's kind of come to roost in refugee rhetoric and concerns over refugees, because we have some resettlement groups. The current town that I live in, Missoula, was floating the idea of becoming a sanctuary city for a while. And so there was some pretty significant pushback against that from people, not just in, you know, the surrounding kind of rural areas, but also in, you know, some of these kind of, you know, metropolitan areas, or as close to a metropolitan area as you can get in Montana.
Right.
Yeah. And so that, you know, exists alongside, you know, some existing hate groups that are already in this area. You know, we had some Atomwaffen activity in particularly Western Montana. There's a couple of, I think there's a group called Pioneer Little Europe or something like that. That's just one of those sort of. I'm sure you've seen that documentary, Welcome to Leith. They're kind of trying to do the same thing, set up a little, you know, all white commune in Kalispell or whatever. And so all of these things exist, but even, you know, beyond just the far right, you know, people care really deeply about the environment here, because it's, you know, kind of, it's viewed as one of these untouched areas of the country. You know, we have a lot of national parks and public lands and things out here, and, you know, it hasn't been too heavily deforested. And so people really pride themselves on being able to access those lands, go out, hunt, fish, you know, do all of that. And so the, you know, ecological concerns kind of transcend partisan lines. And so I think all of that together kind of creates like this really, to my mind, interesting possibility of how those two disparate ends might kind of come together and find some common ground. And then the last sort of element is that, you know, this area has always kind of been a hotbed for, you know, these really hyper focused individual acts of right wing resistance. We have, you know, the Ruby Ridge thing just south of Missoula in Idaho. There's the Malheur, Oregon standoff. We had Kaczynski, obviously, his home base being in Lincoln. There's all sorts of, you know, these little, you know, kind of pockets and little tiny incidents that have occurred that make me think that there's a possibility for that kind of sporadic, violent right-wing insurrection.
Right. Okay. So there's a lot there already. I figure we can just kind of pick through some of that, unpack some of that.
Sure.
So one question that immediately comes to my mind is, at one point you mentioned something about how you're interested. If I heard you correctly, you said you're kind of interested in possibilities for how the environmental left and the environmental right could create something that would be workable and attractive. Is that what you're interested in, or did I mishear you?
No, yeah. And I don't know that I would necessarily say the left, right? You know, it's more kind of I mean, I guess we're getting this is pretty pedantic, but the center left, or even centrist kind of liberal types.
Sure.
There's, I mean, the environment is very much a single issue, an issue for kind of like the single issue type people, and environmental like resistance movements that are kind of trying to push back against like deforestation, and in particular the selling of public lands, which is a huge issue here, is kind of neutered, I guess. It's not, we have a lot of campus activism, which I'm trying to think of. One of the more recent happenings that occurred in Missoula with regard to environmental activism was, there's a group at the University of Montana whose aim is to get the university to divest from the use of fossil fuels. But their actions for the past couple of years have essentially been, they set up these, we're going to occupy the business building on campus, and they occupy it and they stay for 10 minutes after the building closes. The cops show up, they threaten to cite them, and then everybody leaves. And that's like the extent of, like where environmental activism is at. We do have, occasionally out-of-staters come in and, chain themselves to pipelines and things like that. And you get a lot more of this in the Dakotas with, like indigenous resistance to pipelines and things like that. But when it comes to like that very specific, like white activism in places like Montana, it's really, I mean, neutered is the word. Like it's very virtue signal-y, I suppose.
Right. Right. But, that is an interesting phenomenon that all of the Pacific Northwest, it seems, is like a mecca for radical lefties and radical righties. I mean, it's a little odd that they would go to the same place, I always think that also about the Bay Area. It's sort of like California and the whole Northwest in general. It's kind of strange that ideological opposites are inclined to go to the same place.
Sure. Well, and I mean, you think, of places like particularly Washington and Oregon as where, lefties kind of flock. But also, I mean, like that's at the same time, like, what white nationalist movements talk about when they talk about creating an ethno state, and in Cascadia, quote unquote. And so, I mean, they kind of idolize the area for very different reasons, and so I think the possibility of finding some common ground with these very singularly focused environmentalists commingling with right-wing activists who either do truly want to make deceleration and ecofascism their mission, or just right-wing nationalists who have realized that they can recruit people through environmentalism. Either way, I think the possibility of those intermixing is really interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating for sure. So where do you come down on that exactly? Like, do you personally, I'm curious, I mean, are you interested in the whole kind of decelerationist project, and is that what you think is a promising path? Or maybe if you have an answer to that, that works. And I have another way of framing it.
Are you asking me if I'm an eco-fascist, Justin?
How do you describe your views?
I am not a decelerationist or eco-fascist. I'm interested in it primarily because of the parallels that I see with that thought and this area where I've lived for my entire life. But I am understanding of, and I wouldn't necessarily say sympathetic to, but I do get it. It's, I mean, you can't be surrounded by, this much vast open nature for such a long time without feeling some sort of emotional attachment to it. Personally, like where my personal politics fall, I'm certainly somewhere on the far left, I guess. But
I suspected that. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, well, no, and I think, and that was sort of one of the big problems that folks had with the article was that when I was writing it, I kind of intentionally tried to avoid moralizing about these ideas and this movement, because I think it's important that people take these kind of ideas on their own terms so as to understand better whether and I don't think this article is either going to recruit new eco-fascists or convince people to form some sort of uprising against it. But I think it's important to understand these ideas, and I think it's important to go in without having this a kind of reactionary, angered response right off the bat.
Right. I think that's fair enough for sure. So are you kind of like a left decelerationist, could you say?
Oh no, I'm much more sympathetic to acceleration, but deceleration for me is just an interesting area of study, I guess.
Okay, interesting. So I'm just trying to kind of suss out your viewpoint, because you seem very concerned about the ecofascism that's becoming, increasingly associated with places like Montana, and is starting to kind of gravitate and center itself in places like Montana. I mean, it's clear that you find that a very troubling and important trend that people should pay attention to and be aware of, and you seem, politically troubled by it. That I think comes through clearly in your article.
Gotcha.
But you seem, very concerned about, the environment and the state of Montana, and the reality of, environmental degradations seem to be something that you take very seriously. So it sounds like you're just trying to, I don't know, or I should say, I'm trying to kind of figure out where is Michael Siebert's kind of underlying, like reconciliation of these concerns.
Sure. And let me back up a little bit. I don't want to, God forbid I actually take a consistent position on anything, but I don't know that I would necessarily say, environmentalism and particularly conservation are at the top of my concerns. I think my partner talks about this a lot, Claire. I think a while back she had tweeted something to the effect of like the focus on the preservation of the natural world and conservation is like bad for ecology. And I think to a large extent I agree, because of just how where I align with decelerationism is I pretty much uniformly agree with them that the natural world is fucked, and if it's not fucked now, it's about to be. And I guess where I diverge is I think that it's better to adapt to that, and whether or not that looks like Blade Runner or something completely different, is for non to decide, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. But at the same time, I am very sympathetic to it, and I do understand the plight, and I understand the urge to push back against it. I just don't know that when it comes to praxis, that I align with those concerns at all. I think it's better to just adapt.
Do you think that deceleration is implicitly and necessarily aligned with ecofascism ultimately in the final analysis, or is there a meaningful distinction where one could imagine viable and sustainable, or at least defensible, forms of decelerationist politics?
That's
not ecofascist.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously it's such a kind of fledgling school of thought, prior to this resurgence of interest in Kaczynski in the last couple of years. It was pretty much just like Linkola and a couple of other deep ecologists that were really delving into these ideas. But I think if there were a deceleration that was trying to distinguish itself from ecofascism, it would have a couple of problems. And one of those problems specifically is the problem of open borders, because so much decelerationist and just like overpopulation type rhetoric centers around the idea that there are too many people and that it's better to close borders and focus on maintaining these specific areas, which is why it's so compatible with kind of right-wing ethnostatism and rhetoric about homelands and things like that. So that's one hurdle that it would have to overcome. And then I guess the other kind of implicit problem is, I mean, there's only one way to deal with overpopulation, which is to depopulate. And so how do you reconcile that with, not even necessarily a left wing, but just like a not right wing politics? I think, and one of the things that interests me, and I think that this offers, a possibility of how we might come to that point, is there's a Linklaw essay on his website where he talks about. Should I explain who he is, do you think? Or is
Sure,
that...
Sure, you could do a quick recap, of course.
Yeah, so his name is, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. I was watching a video last night. The Finns pronounce his name like Pentti-Linkola. But he's, yeah, so he was he's an ex-ornithologist based in Finland. He was very interested in the study of birds. But then I think in the late 50s, transitioned kind of into writing about the impending ecological collapse. And as
we need to make public service announcements warning children to not get too interested in birds.
That's how it always goes.
Birds are the gateway drug to ecofascism.
Happens to the best of us. But yeah, so his thought, kind of, he started focusing on like I had said, ecological collapse in his writings as early as the early 60s. And his writing, kind of became, as time went on, more kind of nihilistic about the situation, which is where he sort of started, developing these ideas about deep ecology, and then eventually, like, what has been described by his critics as ecofascism. And he has he has sort of like a 7-point plan for how to fix the world with population at its current level. And it involves a radical restructuring of pretty much like every element of society as we currently understand it. And a lot of those things involve, I think one of his biggest things is that our diets have to drastically change to include insects and rats.
Fuck that. I'm not changing my diet at all. I don't care what he says.
And he also, trade is pretty much uniformly abolished. We would have to, pretty much repurpose all existing materials and drastically downscale our lives. And it's interesting because, you could easily critique him, but he does kind of live that life currently. From what I understand, as of now, he lives in a shack with no running water and no electricity, and I think the only commodity he owns is a cell phone that he uses for emergencies.
Oh, dude, he has a cell phone? Forget it, hypocrite.
Yeah, right, absolutely. But yeah,
I don't care how many crickets he eats. If he has a cell phone, it's all invalidated.
But I think somewhere in there there's these very specific steps that he outlines for how we might be able to slow, if not halt, that ecological collapse. And I think and obviously this plan that he has gets into the issue of borders, which is where things get obviously much more right wing. But I think there may be something within there that a kind of, and not to just make up a Twitter ideology right now, but I think there's something in there that left decelerationist could potentially latch onto, where they want to should they want to create a kind of response.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty into intuitively. Obviously, I'm with you. I'm not going to like try to invent some Twitter ideology on YouTube in 2 minutes, but I definitely have intuitions that are fairly well aligned with a kind of left decelerationist idea in that, like, I mean, I kind of want to move to Montana, buy like a super cheap cabin, but not eat crickets or like give up my like not give up my cheap, delicious, like mass produced food and stuff. Like basically get a cheap cabin, move there with a bunch of people, all be breeders, accelerate the population, and you have to have like high powered Wi-Fi, like really good broadband. And basically everyone in like the compound is making babies, and it's a communist unit, of course. That's what makes it like left wing, and so all the tasks are shared, but everyone just has online businesses and like makes money on like making YouTube videos and shit, and everyone pools that. So you only really need one or two big YouTube stars. The rest can all be small fries. Everyone lives off of that. Everyone shares the tasks, but most of the tasks are just done by robots anyway, because we have like good broadband and technology to do that stuff for us. But all the while, we're completely going with the flows of you know, techonomics, and accelerating every process, including, you know, technology, economy, and population flows. And yeah, we just ride the wheels off this bitch in beautiful, loving nature.
I think the first problem that you're going to run into is that you've assumed that housing in Montana is cheap and affordable, which it currently is not.
Isn't there just vast swaths of land that like no one wants and is relatively like, I mean, isn't there, like, you can definitely find cheap land and cheap huts and stuff, can't you?
Oh, I mean, you know, it depends on which part of the state you're looking at. If you want to get, you know, your beautiful, majestic forests in the west part of the state, you're going to have a much harder time, you know, finding affordable land out this way, because so much of the land is public, is also something that you have to contend with. But I mean, yeah, if you want to go out to the, you know, drought-addled plains of eastern Montana and live in a shack in 100-degree weather, like, you know, that could work for you.
No, we would have really high quality air conditionings, of course. It's acceleration.
Oh, right.
It's
okay, sure.
So basically, we would have all possible technologies providing all possible amenities being paid for by the YouTube income streams, and we would basically, yeah, just be accelerating population collapse and environmental collapse, but doing it within the beauty of nature.
I'll have to put more thought into this YouTube content creation farm nightmare that you're describing to me.
Yeah, let me know.
Sure.
You can sign up by emailing me. I'm just kidding.
Cool.
Okay, so that was cool. That was fun. I feel like I cut to the quick of, you know, the basic gist of your article, and got a little bit more information that readers of your article maybe wouldn't have got otherwise, about kind of your perspective and who you are, and what you think about these issues. So that was an efficient and, I think, concise little foray into your perspective there. So thank you for that. I think since I don't have you for that long, what I want to do for the last, I think you said you have about another 20 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, plus or minus, I can.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. I don't want to make you late for work or stressed or anything at the last minute. So what I want to do now is, there are a few questions from the public chat that we can just go through, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, it sounds great.
If anyone has any new ones, they could type them in now. We may or may not have time to get to all of them, but I'll take it from the top in the order that they came. So
Is there a way to see the chat through Hangouts on my end?
You don't see it through Hangouts. You can go to a web browser and look at the watch page, but
and just mute it. Okay, sure.
Yeah, if you want to, or I can just facilitate. I have it right here. It's up to you.
Okay, sure.
All right. So here is the first question. It's kind of random, but do you have any tips about writing?
Geez.
Someone would like to hear your tips or advice on writing.
I get this question a lot lately.
Do you write a lot? Have you written many places? I'm sorry, I haven't looked too close into your bibliography.
No, sure. I'm actually primarily a music journalist outside of this. This was kind of a fluke thing for me.
Oh, cool. What other sites do you write for?
I write for the Quietus a lot. I write for some metal websites like Invisible Oranges and places like that. I've in the past written for like Pitchfork and like Bandcamp and a couple of sites like that. So yeah.
Are you a musician?
Ex-musician.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting to learn. I think now that you mentioned that, I remember seeing those links in your bio. So that's cool. Thanks for reminding me. So yeah, tips on writing. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, the writing question that I get often is like, how do you force yourself to write consistently? And I guess what I would say is 9 times out of 10, you just have to like force yourself to write something. I think one of the things that I do is like, even if I'm really struggling to get something, written, or like get some sort of idea down, is I just like make myself write like exactly 100 words. And more often than not, like struggling through that first like initial, kind of burst gets me to a point where I can just keep, writing. And even if that isn't the case, then like that's 100 words of something that you didn't otherwise have before. And then more often than not, I mean, like it's for me, it's just mostly about like not being afraid to like ask better writers if they would, peruse your shit for you. Because yeah, I mean, there's plenty of, cave Twitter folks who I think are really phenomenal writers who I'll have look over some of my stuff, even if it's just like music related or whatever. Because they have quality tips, and more often than not, workshopping things around is going to make your writing stronger. So that said, I am always happy to take a look at folks' writing if I have time. So feel free to DM.
Dude, that's a dangerous offer. We got 35 people watching this, man.
Oh shit!
Might get inundated. No, that's very kind of you, and that's sage wisdom. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, just a quick little side note or addendum to what you said. Like one of the reasons blogging is so cool is because you can write like just 100 words and throw it up there, and then you can also you can write things specifically to like one person, in 100 words or whatever, or like something that only one person on the internet you have reason to believe might be interested in it. You can write those 100 words, just throw it up, and then send a link to that one person you think might be interested in it. And if it's to them, they're probably going to be interested in it. Like I think more and more that kind of like really micro level type of like intellectual exercise and communication is like really, I think a lot of people don't realize how worthwhile it is, both for getting your own thoughts out, getting your own writing moving consistently, and then also just for making like valuable and productive, alliances and comrades on the internet. Like I saw this blog post recently by someone who's actually really active in the chats here usually, who I know fairly well now, Neural Shroud. He,
sure.
I saw like one of his blog posts from a little while back, which I guess I missed when it first came out. And it was just basically, it was about Nishiki, and it was just about how Neural Shroud really likes Nishiki and why he likes Nishiki. And it was just a few really sweet but thoughtful paragraphs about like why he thinks Nishiki's cool and how he relates to Nishiki's unique kind of voice. And that's all there was to it. I just thought it was really sweet and cool. And like, there should be more of that. I like seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, just the more you write, the better you're going to get at writing fundamentally. So yeah, that's the best advice I have.
I've actually never like reached out to someone who like I admire to just ask them to give like to look at something or to give me feedback or whatever. So I appreciate that advice too. I've never really even thought to do that, but there's no reason people can't do that. And yeah, but you're right. People probably should do that more. Sweet. Let's go to the next question, shall we? Michael, would you see evolution as an accelerative process? If so, do you support using technology to lock down our ecology and the genomes of all animals on Earth?
Shit.
That's what we call a double-barreled question. It's best to not pack two questions into one question. So how about you start with the first one. Do you see evolution as an accelerative process?
Sure. Yeah. I think that's pretty inherent to acceleration period. Okay. Yeah. That's Fair it. Enough. That's all I got.
All right. Good, strong, short answer. Okay. Do you support using technology here's where I'm going to separate the double-barreled question. First question, do you support using technology to lock down our ecology?
I guess I want to have some expansion on what lockdown means.
Martial law and shit like that.
Oh God, no. I mean, personally, for me, I guess I don't want to put my foot in my mouth too much here, but I'm probably going to, because that's just the nature of being on a live stream. But I think I don't know. I don't see the need to focus on, nature preservation. I think, at this point, it's all so irreparably fucked, that, it's kind of it's quickly becoming a moot point. And I think that's what's become so interesting for me in, kind of interrogating my own thoughts about ecofascism and deceleration, is I just kind of see the project as inherently fucked. Because and I talk about this in the Jacobite article a little bit. I sort of speculate about what an eco-fascist resistance in the Upper Mountain West and the Pacific Northwest. And I saw a comment in the chat that had said that I referred to Montana as the part of the Pacific Northwest.
No, that was me. He was making fun of my stupid.
I was making fun of you.
Northeastern background.
Oh, fucker. But
no, it's okay. Tracy's cool.
Sure. No, but anyway, yeah, I mean, but essentially what I argue in the article is that, like, realistically that's going to manifest in one of two ways, and it's going to manifest as either these, individual pocket instances of, like violence, a la Ruby Ridge, Kaczynski, even, somewhere like, I'm even thinking like Waco, as like a possible model for what that might look like. I see these like highly individual, localized instances of, eco-fascist or decelerationist violence, potentially occurring. But the lasting effect of that is going to be pretty moot. I mean, I don't know that you'll ever necessarily be able to mobilize people around the idea of, limiting your consumption and decluttering your life and doing all the things that would be necessary for a decelerationist project to function. I could even, potentially see, some anarcho-primitivist communes popping up. I think that's an idea that's clearly appealing to people. I've seen some rumblings of that on Pine Tree Twitter. But for me personally, it's mostly just that I don't think that that's a sustainable project. And I think realistically, like the best step forward is to focus less on, like, how can we preserve this patch of forest, and focus on the more immediate concern of, like, how do we stay alive for the next 100 years. Right. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. So I'm going to assume that your answer to the second part of the question, which is, do we lock down the genomes of all animals on Earth, is probably also going to be negative. You probably think not so high a priority for you.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, like, I think the best possible outcome is that we start growing meat in factories, because I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I was about to say that my view on this might be a little pessimistic, but I don't even know that that's necessarily true. I think I keep using the word adapt, and I think it's just necessary to be adaptive. And I think, given the rate at which species go extinct, attempting to halt that process in any way is pretty much impossible at this point.
Okay, well, so, everyone, you heard it here first, folks. Michael Siebert says that everything's fucked, so everyone is allowed to litter as much as they want.
Yep.
You have ethical permission from Michael Siebert. If the police get mad at you, or your neighbor gets angry, just say you heard it on the internet from Michael Siebert. He's a really smart guy in Montana. He's in Montana. He knows the most about the environment, so he said it. It's cool.
Send him my way.
Cool. So, oh, by the way, I have a quick question to interject my own. Is Missoula cool?
I've
heard good things about it.
You're going to need to ask me in like 10 years, because I mean, I've been living in Montana since birth. I was born in 95 and am 23 now. And I'm pretty much at my limit for how much I can tolerate being here anymore. I am about to move, actually, so my Montana cred is about to get shredded. But I think that there is a lot to like about Montana, and I think, so long as we haven't, hit that, peak moment of collapse and unsustainability. I think it's a really nice place to live. You don't have areas that look like this in many places, and I think it's nice to be surrounded by, except when the entire fucking state is on fire for a couple of weeks out of the summer due to wildfires. But yeah, other than that,
that's crazy. It does seem like a pretty crazy place. I would like to visit one day for sure. All right, the next question is, well, Evie Bird wants to see your feet, but I'm not going to request that of you, so don't worry about that. I mean,
DM me, Evie.
Yeah, DM, right? It might cost you, but you can DM him. You're very welcoming to DMs, Michael. I appreciate that. I am also. I mean, Evie, how do you know that the blue man is not actually one of Michael's toes? Think about it. The next question is, what do you know about Whitefish, Montana, the small town with a lot of far right groups attracting figures like Richard Spencer and Eric Prince?
Ooh, I mean,
have you ever been to Whitefish?
Yeah, but a bunch of times. It's so
you're on someone's watch list now.
Yeah, right. No, I think that whole area, Whitefish, Kalispell, and Columbia Falls, it's all kind of the same sort of area. It's interesting because it's sort of long been a focal point for extremist and white nationalist groups, and I don't really. I mean, I understand why, because I mean, it's in the northern part of the state. It's it kind of fits that sort of, like I had kind of referred to earlier, that Cascadian ethno-state ideal. And people are, attempting to do a sort of Leaf, North Dakota type thing there. But I think it's also, its white nationalist contingent is, I think, potentially a bit overstated. Spencer doesn't really spend any time here, from what I understand. He's mostly, LARPing in DC or whatever he's doing. But I mean, I think it's just it's like I touch on in the Jacobite piece. It's the perfect place to be isolated. It's far north. It's not particularly populous, and it's got a lot of untouched forest, particularly like Glacier National Park up there. And so I think that sort of creates this perfect storm of, this is a good place to either start a commune or just plan. And so I think that's really all there is to it. I mean, like, you're just not gonna, see that in areas that aren't as isolated, I guess. And I'm sure that's the case everywhere, but.
Okay. Yeah, I hear that. By the way, we got Storm King in the house. I'm not sure if he's still here. I saw him in the chat now.
Hey, buddy.
One of the chief representatives of, the decelerationist perspective and also Midwestern life.
Storm King has always been very nice to me, so
nice guy. Yeah. I talked to them. By the way, Storm King, I was kidding about the cell phone thing. I don't actually, I don't hold people to have absolutely consistent personal practices with their worldview. I don't think it's possible under capitalism. I think we're all forced into some minimal amount of hypocrisy for survival. So I was kidding. All right, what else we got? Okay, Storm King says, interesting interview. He doesn't think we were just laughing at him or anything like that.
Okay, good.
What other kind of questions do we got? And am I missing one? Oh, okay, Storm King's got a question, actually. Are you uncomfortable with the fact that the accelerationist takeoff of autonomous techno-capital is basically a religious belief, giving no credence to analysis of physical limits? It's a good question.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess, it's my concern is not so much with the takeoff of techno capital so much as it is just like the actual, like, tangible environmental concerns that we're faced with. I mean, certainly, all of these processes are reversible, in the ideal circumstances. I just think that, the primary project of deceleration and, ecofascism, I suppose, is to convince people to give up their lifestyles. And I think given the degree to which people are already living uncomfortably, whether it's due to low wages or poor living conditions or whatever else in cities and things like that, I think the biggest obstacle would be convincing them that it's worth downsizing, because there's already there's so little comfort already, and I just don't know that it's necessarily possible to win enough people over to effectively reverse those conditions, at least currently. One thing that does interest me about deceleration is this kind of idea that eventually there will be a collapse, and that from the collapse we will then rebuild these conditions, which I think is a very interesting prospect. I just don't know that I personally see it happening that way. But and again, I mean, I'm an armchair Twitter thinker, right? Like my thoughts on this aren't as academic as they could be. But yeah, I mean, I guess just personally, I'm thinking even in Montana cities, right? I mean, like the people who spend most of their time outdoors and really value the outdoors still need their amenities, and have become accustomed to a certain way of living. And I don't know that there are even a lot of Montanans who you could successfully convince to downgrade their lifestyle to the extent that somebody like Lincoln or some decelerationist would want you to, in order to reverse the speeding up of techno capital. So I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And I don't want to necessarily say that it's I don't want to come down too hard on the notion of decelerationism as it's divorced from the right wing ideals, which I personally don't agree with. But yeah, I mean, I guess it just comes down to whose prediction is going to be correct, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's all very good. I would only add to Link. I was going to call him Linkola Wave, Storm King's question. I would only add two quick things, which is one. I mean, even though I'm, I guess, an accelerationist, I think one can definitely acknowledge that the Earth almost certainly does have a certain amount of physical limits. The key signposts for adding some nuance to that, though, is that one, the digital plane changes the meaning of that, the significance of physical constraints, because digitalism means the possibility of basically entirely new worlds. Like it's almost like, for all intents and purposes, it's almost like a new type of dimension that is not subject to. It obviously has some physical constraints, but all of a sudden it's a very different game for the possibility of worlds and lives, different types of lives to continue, much less subject to some sort of like naive linear idea of physical constraints. That's one. And I think also through the digital vector, whatever might be coming after humanity could very well have much less kind of physical biological constraints than humanity. So it might be true that humanity, as a carbon-based life form, might at some point soon exceed the physical limits of what the Earth can sustain, but a new form of life, whatever comes after humanity, whatever is the next stage in evolution, whether that be some sort of like human digital hybrid or some purely digital alternative substrate or something, who knows? I mean, I think that it's in the nature of the thing that we're unable to see or model exactly what it will be. But the idea is whatever it will be will probably be less subject to the physical constraints that we are subject to. And so that might mean shooting off to Mars. That might mean shooting more deeply into cyberspace. Who knows? It's all speculation from there. My only point is that the accelerationist perspective kind of presumes some sort of forking process in which our carbon-based physical requirements get kind of obviated precisely by the technological accelerations that we have yet to force to really understand what's coming through the pike.
Sure, and that has me thinking of some of the critiques of deep ecology and Linkola in particular. One of the kind of chief critics of that movement is or was Murray Bookchin, who is a post scarcity anarchist, and I guess the sort of fundamental question that both sides have to reckon with is. Uh, uh excuse me, sorry, I lost my train of thought. My fucking cat is crawling all over my computer. um
That's okay.
but but yeah, I think the possibility that we'll have to think of is, first, is scarcity artificial? Are there enough resources to actually meet the demands of as many people that are living and will currently live? And does that mean, downgrading our lifestyle, or does it mean, adapting the landscape and physically, like you had said, potentially, spending more time in whatever convoluted, second life system that we come up with in the next 50 years. I mean, I guess it's whether, do you want to live in huts with a nice landscape, or do you want to put on a VR helmet and live in an arid landscape? And I think either way, it's possible to support as many life forms as exist currently. I think it's just going to be a matter of like how those resources are meted out. And either way, I think it's going to be very interesting.
So I think you might need to go at this point. Is this a good opportunity for you to skip out, or do you want to keep going? We have more questions. We also could you could come back on like in a few days or something. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I could. It looks like there's a couple more. I could take like a few more of these questions.
Okay, probably the most important one is, are slime girls eco-fascist?
No.
So okay, good. I think that's enough on that question.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to take real quick, well, give to you, but also give my 2 cents, because I'm a narcissist and I always need to contribute what I think, even if people want it or not. Alice asks if publishing in Jacobite will ruin her possible academic career, and I want to comment on this, because I think the answer is really no. I think people really overestimate the like institutional punishment that you will be given for participating in like fringe internet subcultures that might be a little edgy, might be a little dicey, but that most normal people just don't have the time or energy or attention to pay attention to. So, and also, people like, I think Jacobite is really good on the whole. I mean, there might be some article there that I have never read that says like, we should pursue genocide against some population or something like that, but I've never seen anything like that in Jacobite, and all the articles I've read have been by very thoughtful people, including like my friend Diana, who's an academic. So my 2 cents on this is people vastly overestimate the potential costs of writing on like some independent internet blog. Personally, I think people overestimate that.
This is something that I talked to Mike Crumplar, who is also a Jacobite writer, on occasion, about pretty extensively before this article actually came out, because I was a little worried about it. Not because I have anything at all against Jacobite. I think it's one of the only publications that's engaging in good faith with fringe politics without heavy moralization, which I really appreciate. I think Jacobite is kind enough not to insult the intelligence of its readers, which I really appreciate. I think I mean, and my main concern was, I'm not an academic, right? I have an undergrad in fucking journalism, so my main concern was, what is the reaction to this piece going to be? How much pushback am I going to get, and what will that look like for my work prospects in the future? And in the short term, as it is right now, it hasn't really done much. I think a fair bit of I did get pushback, right, from both deceleracionists and Pine Tree folks, and from Rose Twitter kind of guys, who were concerned that I was essentially either aiding and abetting fascism or misrepresenting the movement. And I think the latter could, potentially be a concern that I'm willing to address. I think there were some concerns about me potentially maybe putting Kaczynski and Linkola into similar of a category, given that, Kaczynski is maybe more of a Luddite. But, but at that point, it all just sort of comes down to semantics. I mean, I think they are, very causally linked. But I think, as for the tangible effects that it has had, I got like 10 new Twitter followers. And I think I had a really nice discussion with a lot of different people about, the implications of this movement. I don't think Jacobite is in a position currently where anybody would see a byline in it that is not already deeply embedded in these cultures and be like, it's not like I'm publishing in like Quillette or anything like that. But I think oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, I mean that's essentially where I'm at. I think people are more willing to engage with ideas than I think we sometimes give them credit for.
Yeah.
And I think people are more willing to hear out your explanation, because I had a lot of leftist friends who enjoyed the article, and even some DSA type friends who enjoyed the article, and or at least got something out of it. And I think, so long as you aren't physically joining, eco-fascist movements just so that you can write about it for Jacobite, I don't think you're compromising anything. I think that Jacobite was willing to publish like a communist transgender person in on their website says a lot about the values of the two editors and where that publication is at. And I think that any academic or future editor or anything would be able to see that given the content of the website.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think like I'm not in the business of endorsing or distancing myself from any publication. I think like my attitude is I'm on a case by case basis. If I see a good article and I think it's smart and worth talking about, worth sharing, then I'll talk about it. I'll share it. And it like what the worst possible person on that website once upon a day said is like is just of little interest to me, and I'm totally opposed to that entire kind of like calculating contagion model. But I agree with you. My sense of Jacobite, by the way, I should say I have no relationship to Jacobite. I've drawn a fair number of my guests on the show for over the past month for whatever reason from people who wrote articles in Jacobite for some reason. That's been not purposeful really, but yeah, it just happens they're getting a lot of people to write good, interesting stuff. So yeah, I'm not like some sort of like paid shill for Jacobite, which is what it might look like at some point. But I think generally they're good. And I think, yeah, someone actually made a comment in here about how Exigentime said, Jacobite is helping to create the new social academia. And you are an early adopter if you are writing there, and you will be regarded highly in the future. I think there's a good grain of truth to that. Also, I would add, I think that like, look, if you talk to academics privately, if you talk to lefty activists privately, there's a good chunk of the smarter ones and more honest ones who know that all of contemporary institutionalized, legitimated public discourse is pretty fucked. And that there's a lot of stupidity and a lot of normalized, just insanity and political pandering and just childish stuff. So most smart people are aware of that. Most smart people in private a lot of them will agree with that. And what that means is like, people, if you're a real intellectual, if you have real ideas, if you're really trying to say something, then you should be turning to smaller outlets that are apart from the establishment institutions to be more honest and be more real. And I think that's like what Jacobite and many other places like Jacobite are kind of representing right now. And I think like there's more to be gained from doing that than there is to risk. I think for most people, that's my view anyway.
Yeah, and I think the last thing that I'll probably say about this before I have to jet and get to the convenience store, is that I think that there is a potentially burgeoning market for people of opposing political ideas to be engaging with the quote unquote other side. And I think that there is a long-standing, leftist tradition of that in both academia and in, journalism writ large. I think I was you have the American Conservative, for example, publishes, a good deal of at least lib left, if not left writers. I'm thinking guys like Chase Madar in particular, get invited to their kind of year-end wrap-ups of like what did we all think of politics this year? And I mean, he's a Chapo Trap House guest. And I think even, going further back than that, you had radical feminists like Andrea Dworkin who were willing to engage with publications like the National Review and places like that, specifically, in the interest of furthering the discourse. And I think that's something that's really important. And I think that eventually people are going to get tired of this sort of only stick to, writing in, engaging with, discussing articles and ideas that come from your side, I guess. And I think that there's, I think what Jacobite signals to me is that there is an interest in people who are willing to engage with ideas in good faith, more so than there has been. And I think while I don't know that necessarily my publishing in Jacobite means that I will be highly regarded in the future, I think what Jacobite signals is that this is the kind of thing that there is a significant audience for, and I think that's a good thing. I don't feel that you are aiding and abetting fascism because you're willing to have a conversation with somebody who is even an out and out fascist. It's important to discuss things, and it's important to understand other movements, even if your sole goal is to, resist and be in opposition to those movements. You have to understand, something, even especially if you want to fight against it. And I think Jacobite presents an interesting new horizon of where that discourse might be heading.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I agree with all of that, I think, Michael. So, well put. Thank you for joining me, and I'll let you go now. I don't want you to be late for work. There were a few questions we didn't get to, but that's fine. If you ever want to pick up the conversation again, we can just do it again at your convenience. I'm always happy to talk.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. All right, I'll be in touch with you, Michael.
All right, take care.
Later. All right, everyone. What'd you think? That was fun. Michael's cool. First time I ever talked to them. We've interacted a little bit on the twits, obviously, but smart guy, nice guy. I think we got along well. What do you think? Did he like me? Yeah, I kind of want to riff a little bit more on that point, because I guess it's something that's kind of close to the heart, because, it's okay, Jackbot. You can watch this any other time. It gets archived. People are always panicky, like upset that they missed it, but it's not going anywhere. One of the things I wanted to add after I let Michael go is that this idea of like being recognized in the future, it's an understandable and near universal interest to people who are interested in intellectual work, because, doing intellectual work at all, thinking, writing, trying to contribute to the discourse, whatever you want to call it, that does have an evolutionary basis in, sexual mating interests. And in some sense, there is a fairly hardwired and deep, let's say, relationship between intellectual production and, let's call it, a drive for legacy. There's kind of no getting around an essential kind of biological basis for that. And then in a kind of extrapolated symbolic extension of that seems to me to be pretty uncontroversial. And so I think it's totally natural and even good and fine that intellectual work is highly tied up with concerns and calculations about, where should I devote my energies and attentions? Where should I invest my effort so that my thinking and writing and work has like the greatest impact on the future, or whatever, however you think about that. But I think that one implication of kind of the accelerationist perspective, I think, in my view, is that the very possibility that any one individual will today have their intellectual work recognized and in the long-term future, or even in the short-term future, like even in 50 years, the likelihood that anyone will enjoy that success as intellectual is probably decreasing pretty rapidly on average. Well, actually, I could, how should I say that? No, that's actually not quite right. I take that back. In some sense, the opportunity for someone to produce ideas and have some type of short-term impact is probably increasing on average, because yeah, most of history, it was a tiny elite at any given time that could even have a chance of doing that, and most of those weren't even really remembered. The canon is like a very tiny slice of the population. What you now have is much larger numbers of people have a genuine opportunity to create ideas and work that will actually be remembered by some people in 20 years, in 50 years, in 100 years, or maybe even more if we last that long. But that number of people that will recognize it and value it, that number is decreasing, I think. And this is the accelerationist motif of fragmentation. I think, as I've talked about before, I think prestige economies are basically collapsing, and you're just getting more and more sort of forks of the canon, basically. So what that means to me, I think, is that when you think that through, if you are trying to do intellectual work and you are thinking about what's the best way to have an impact, more and more the correct decision for a lot of people is you should try to find the people that are most interested in precisely like what you're interested in and what your strengths are and what your temperament is. Cultivate that as much as possible and try to create like spaces and structures for other people who share your temperament and share your interests, and try to build something meaningful with them, and in that kind of small world context. I think that's increasingly the only option people have for doing really meaningful and at least somewhat lasting intellectual work. And that's basically, I just gave you one of the major rationales behind everything that I'm doing with, my turn to YouTube and things like that. And also it's one reason why I'm turning to be a much more participatory, kind of networked, collaborative, cooperative model. For most of the history of intellectual life, you did, to really be to have a major impact or whatever, there was a fair degree of basically, isolating yourself and cultivating yourself and getting really smart and disciplining yourself and, producing the great American novel or whatever the fuck it was, whatever your field might be. But you could do that. You could kind of get ahead of the other people by isolating yourself and making yourself better than them or something like that. Lots of people did that, and that can work through a lot of history to enter the canon or whatever. And then you're famous among a million people, or all of the educated world. Someone like Ernest Hemingway or Hegel or Kant. These are, people whose names ring out to any educated person today, which is millions and millions of people. That type of influence and success or whatever as an intellectual is probably going out the window, I imagine. At least that's how it looks like to me. The idea of, none of us, no matter what we do, will probably ever have that type of success or impact or whatever you want to call it intellectually. It's probably not an option. But a large number of us now, and a much larger number of us, many more people are now have at least a shot at doing really meaningful intellectual work that is really valued by maybe 100 people, or maybe, 1,000, maybe even, 10,000, 20,000 people, potentially. A fairly large number, or a much larger number historically, have access to that type of opportunity. You can do that if you have the abilities and the traits, and you put it together and you work hard, and you get lucky, of course, a little bit too, for sure. So that's more available to more people than ever. And so, yeah, maybe it's not as exciting as being the next Kant or being the next Hemingway or something, but reality is what it is, and that's what it looks like. I think things are being flattened radically, but whatever, roll with it. That's reality, and it's ultimately an egalitarian and kind of exciting. I think it's a beautiful thing, to be honest. On net, I think it's a beautiful thing, because people can be more unique. They don't have to aspire to some sort of mass appeal, and more people can do it, and it's going to be more diverse, and there's going to be more sociological and aesthetic accents and flavors and differentiations, and I find that incredibly vibrant, and it's cool. Yeah, so that's a long reflection to say basically that cool. See you, Michael. Have a good day at work. Thanks for hanging with me. So I think that's a longer reflection on why I think I gave the answer that I did to that question, which is that I definitely think for the overwhelming majority of like young people or young adults, or even I guess not young adults, whatever, who are, want to do intellectual work of any kind, really, like writing, especially around like theory and philosophy and the types of stuff that we're all interested in here. When you take this larger perspective, I think it's very clear that all of the incentives are aligned for you to, hell yeah, right, for places like Jacobite and any other types of, respected and appreciated and favorably, like anywhere that's appreciated in the milieus that you are interested in. Like if other people read it at all and you read it, then no website should be like too small or too dicey or politically incorrect for you to invest your effort into it. I think people should go full steam ahead on whatever, spaces are available to, and relevant in the domain of their interests, and that reflects, their temperament and their interests and the people that they're trying to communicate with. I actually think there's a lot of wasted energy right now in the world, especially even in these spheres that we're all in the kind of weird theory, whatever, like heterodox politics, blogosphere, and Twitterverse. I think there's a lot of super intelligent people who aren't quite writing as much as maybe they could. And I think there's a lot of underexploited intelligence and creativity that is in large part because of the types of concerns and calculations that were raised in the question that we started this discussion with. There's a lot of people thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't write for Jack. I have this really good essay idea that I think a lot of people who read Jacobite would be really interested in. I know I could write it. I have this idea, but should I do it? I don't know. Will it look bad on my CV when I apply to a PhD program next year? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't write it. And then they don't write it. I think that's a bad move. I think that's really bad. It's bad for you. It's bad for all of us who want to read good shit and need more people writing good shit. It's bad for good outlets and good kind of startup ventures like Jacobite that need more people to write for them. Like Quillette is a good example of one type of, kind of startup outlet like Jacobite that really kind of took off. And one of the reasons that Quillette really took off is because once it appeared, a lot of people started submitting to it, and that spiraled, that kind of accelerated upward. But for Quillette to become Quillette, and now it's like this major cultural force, it needed a lot of people who were game to go with it. And even though, Quillette has some pretty politically incorrect authors, for sure. But there was a large number of people who were like, fuck it. I'm not waiting to have a PhD to write like politically correct stuff. I'm going to send my essay to this place now. And that took off. And then it was like a self-reproducing, a self-fulfilling prophecy in some sense. It kind of ushered in its cultural power, in that kind of way. The same type of thing could happen with Jacobite or any other types of startups. But that sort of takeoff, that kind of cultural patchwork kind of, power divergence type of phenomenon requires people like who read a magazine or who participate in a culture to be less calculating and less politically correct and less instrumental, and just, write your fucking essay, write your fucking blog post, send it to where you think people will be interested in it, send it to where you think people will read it. Don't worry so much about how some future PhD supervisor is going to think about it. Whoever reads your fucking PhD application 2 years from now is too busy with cucked bureaucratic work to even look at like what you might have written on the internet 2 years before. For the most part, people who are like working serious, professional, institutionalized jobs just don't have the time or energy to even look into that sort of stuff. They generally couldn't care less. Honestly, people don't even understand like these like internet subcultures. So yeah, people overestimate the risks. And as I said, I think people significantly, they underestimate the risks, and I'm sorry, they overestimate the risks, and they significantly underestimate the value and the benefits to yourself and to others and to like the culture at large from writing in these types of outlets. So again, I'm not secretly paid by Jacobite. I'm just a big booster of independent culture. What else? End rant. Yeah, that fragmentation ties into the lower barriers of entry for viable, smaller ideological communities. 100%, definitely. Should you drop refs to BAP when your women's studies class does queer theory? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I mean, take something like BAP. It's a really good example. Like, in all honesty, I would wager that Bronze Age Pervert has a greater chance of being read 50 years from now than the average academic. I mean, that's a ridiculous statement, but that's true. I mean, that's true. And in fact, I think it's uncontroversially true. Think about that. What else is up, folks? All right. I think I pooped out for the day. That was good, though. I am going to do some planning and strategizing on how I'm going to kind of schedule these and come up with a more specific schedule that I can work on and that works with my schedule of teaching this semester. But if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe right now. I got to get up to those 1,000 subscribers, and I'm almost there. I'm at like 930. So yeah, if you're new here today, please subscribe. I appreciate it. And I'll keep you posted. I have some other streams already scheduled, but I forget what they are. I'll send out some promos soon to let you all know. And otherwise, thank you for hanging with me. This was good. Michael was good. And yeah, let's just let's call it a day, shall we? Scrubs. Yeah, I'm almost at 1,000 scrubs. Actually, that's a really good word for subscribers. You all are probably a bunch of scrubs. No offense. I mean, I'm kind of a scrub. So I imagine that on average, many of you guys are probably scrubs. Moldbug will only be read in certain soft corps. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's the fragmentation dynamic that I think that we're seeing. Multiple canons for sure. Increasing numbers of canons. In the future, undergrads will read Joe Rogan transcripts in Philosophy 101. That's good. And kind of hilarious because it probably is somewhat true. All right, gang. All right, you scrubs. If you're not already a scrub, become a scrub now. I need more scrub scribers. Dude, weed. No, I'm not on weed. I'm not on meth. I'm not on weed. Sometimes I'm just, you know, a little strange. Also, I realize I'm like all washed out. I got to work on the lighting. One of the many things I need to work on. I wonder how long I could just sit here in silence and 27 of you would just stay. No, my like overexposed super white face is not a dog whistle. It's actually a performative piece of artwork that's referencing the Deleuzian and Guattarian concept of the white face. Okay, I don't think you would understand it. Most of you, it's over your head. Sorry, you didn't quite catch the reference, but it's okay. Go back to the books. You'll understand it next time. I look like Dracula. Yeah, that's the subtext here, definitely. I'm a vampire because I'm a capitalist. And I want to suck your blood. Will the political divide fragment into future civilizations in the form of patchwork? Jackbot, really? Is that your question? Really? This must be your first time here. I think you know. I think you know the answer to that question. Everyone here knows the answer to that question. It's an absolute article of faith. Fragmentation is unstoppable. Patchwork is the ultimate, ineluctable outcome. It is happening now. It will continue to happen. Whether you like it or not. Whether you have arguments against that or not. Doesn't matter what anyone says. How dare you ask a question like that in my public chat? I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm just being goofy. I wonder how long I could sit here just doing nothing. And you all would just stay. I'm thinking about doing a sleeping stream where have any of you ever seen that? Where you turn on the camera and you mount it over your bed and you live stream yourself sleeping all night. I'm thinking about doing it. How many of you, tell me in the chat, how many of you would watch that? The Twitch patchwork. Yes. The way that people do sleeping streams is you set it up so that like people can zap you with sounds and wake you up while you're sleeping, and then they get to watch the entertainment of waking you up and keeping you up all night. I would do it for a night. I think it'd be funny. Also, by the way, I want to do a mukbang, which I learned about from you guys in one of the previous live streams. Someone told me about mukbangs, and I had to Google it. And my wife told me about it also. But it sounds fun as hell. I'll just get a massive spread of delicious food, and then eat it all on the live stream. I think I might do one of those sometime soon. In fact, maybe I'll do the mukbang right before the sleep stream. Yeah, 15,000 cows. I could do it. Alice, it's not going to be a wet dream stream. That's extremely naughty. Please no sexual references. I'm a happily married man, and if this public chat starts getting sexual, it's going to create problems between me and my wife. Like how the chat people for Ice Poseidon broke up his relationship. I don't want that type of thing to happen here. No, my live stream will not involve wet dreams. There will be absolutely no live streaming of any of my private, intimate bodily functions. Do I listen to 6ix9ine? No, never heard of it. I hate spellings like that when the number is a letter. Like, it's bad enough when they use a number that kind of looks like a letter, but that's reasonable enough because your eye can kind of see it. But your name can't be 6ix9ine where it starts with the number 6 and then has a number 9 for the letter N. Like, that's not a thing. That's not an option. I'm not a fan of that. So I think in principle, I would not listen to that. But I guess if you want to send a link, if you think it's good, if it's a recommendation, I guess I'd watch it. It shows how strongly principled that is. Goldfire, you want me to get on Twitch? I'm kind of not against it because it'd be fun to learn how to play games. Like, I haven't played a video game in 10 years probably. I would consider it, but I'm still learning how to work this live stream technically in an optimal way. It's time consuming to figure stuff out. What else? Do not loot. Don't worry, no looting. Is your wife single? What kind of stupid question is that? Come on. Hey, Alice, don't call me names. Be nice. Be nice to me. I'm a sensitive soul. I'm a sweet boy. Yes, Marco seconds the mukbang. Marco says, don't play video games. Jamer Fortnite gaming stream. Sans wet dreams. Metal Gear Solid 2. Dude, I played Metal Gear Solid 1 like back in the day for like Super Nintendo or whatever it was. That game was the shit. I would definitely play that again. All right, Gulfire, I need you to fly to the UK and you can be like my shopping assistant. We'll go and you'll have to tell me like what gaming system to get, what software I need. I need to get one of those cool like gamer chairs, you know, not this piece of shit wooden thing. Look at this thing I sit in. Look how old fashioned and stupid this thing is. I need one of those like $500 gaming chairs, has like leather and like dual toned, multicolored leather, and it like comes up here and it's like shaping my head, makes me look all cool. I need a hat and headphones. Serious, I'm here to play. I'm here to play. This is not a joke. Do you guys want to play? Let's play a game. I have a little bit of time. Let's play a game. This game is going to be called Check Justin's Menchies. For short, we'll just call it Checking the Menchies. And what that means is I'll show you my screen when I go to my notifications page. I have 9 notifications, and we'll scroll through them. Dude, I would guess on the Chappy Trap House Twitch stream, but I don't really know what those people, like the left-wing people, I don't think they're very keen on me. I don't really know. I don't really care. But my guess is, or my sense is, that those lefty people are kind of like a little not interested in me and kind of what I'm doing over here, I think, is my read. I have just a few little subtle signals of that here and there. They probably don't care, or maybe they don't even know. But the few little interactions I've had with people and the little bit of indication I've had is that those leftist people think I'm maybe a little too relaxed, let's say, in my political vigilance about who I talk to and who I don't talk to. Yeah, I think some of them do see me as a traitor. I definitely do not think I am that, but and I'm not actually a capitalist at all. I mean, I'm an academic. I don't have I mean, my wife and I have like a small little business thing that we do on the side, but it doesn't make that much money. It's just for friends and family mostly at this point. I mean, I'm still like very largely anti-capitalist. I think capitalism is mostly an engine of horror and disaster. I guess as an accelerationist, I tend to accept it as a feature of reality almost, but doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean I support it. Certainly doesn't make me a capitalist. I don't think being an accelerationist means you are a capitalist. It just means you accept reality, I think. But yeah, okay, a kulak, fine, whatever, Marco, whatever you want to call it, dude, it's fine. Everyone is a mini entrepreneur, basically, under capitalism, whether we like it or not. Everyone's just hustling to make some kind of money. You have to. It's just a matter of how do you do it. What's like the best way for you to do it most efficiently and with the least alienation possible. And yeah, we all are, exactly. A sweet shop owner, no, that'd be funny. Right, so you guys want to see what my mentions look like? It's not very exciting. I have 9 new mentions. I'm just trying to come up with new activities for us to do while we're here. Here's my menchies. Checking the menchies. Oh, wait. Here are my menchies. Checking the menchies. We got, what do we got? We got a new retweet by this person, Trust. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for the retweet. We got Daniel Massey, got a like. Anarchist EgoCom. Da Fook. Difference repetition bot. I get mad retweets from the difference repetition bot. It's a good thing about tweeting about did lose is you're always guaranteed almost at least one retweet. Got a new notification. Russell. Oh, I guess like we could play this game where if I keep my mentions open on the live stream, then people can write in my mentions and then it can appear. I don't know exactly why we would do that, but there's some kind of opportunity for some kind of game there. Marco's amazed that people write bios for themselves. Why, Marco? Are you one of those super cool elite Twitterers who have no bio, your reputation just requires no words. Your reputation is such, your prowess is such that you need no words to announce who you are. People just know. People just know. If you're Marco Costa, you don't need to describe yourself. You don't need to have any descriptions. People just know. Knicks land in the house. Crypt in the house. We got the heavy hitters up in this bitch. Why do the heavy hitters only come out after the guest has gone? I'm in like low energy, low effort, wasting time mode. And then the heavy hitters come out. What's up? Crypt has no bio. Crypt doesn't need a bio. Crypt is like Marco Costa. Absolutely no words are needed to make the world feel who they are dealing with. I don't do crack. No. I also don't do meth. I do weed sometimes, but I'll tell you if I'm on weed. It's rare enough that I'll tell you. Crypt be lurking. Yo, Crypt, I got a question for you. You're very cryptic. No surprise there. So I've hesitated to invite you on the live stream because you're all cryptic. I feel like the live stream would, be inconsistent with your brand a little bit. That's why I haven't asked you yet. But I see you've been hanging out. I see you've been checking the live stream. I see you've been looking this way. So I'm thinking, what's up, bro? You want to get on the live stream? Let's do this. I'd love to chat with you. You can use like an avatar. You can be as cryptic as you want. It's all good. What do you mean that's not Knicks? Oh, I see. Gullfire. Right. That is you, isn't it? Of course. Gotcha. I saw the face. I saw that sexy girl Nick Land face that we all love and are attracted to so much. That pretty Nick Land woman face. And I immediately assumed it was Nick's Land. Sorry. Crypt, what's good, man? You wanna chat one day? I'll message you. Set it up. Or am I right that it's just off brand for you? It's all good either way. Just giving you the invite. All right. Let's go back to the Menschies. Let's look at who retweeted this stream so that we know who our real friends are. Yo, Yitzhak. What's up, yo? All right. Herman Sierra retweeted. Thank you, good sir. That's a good cat. He retweets my stuff fairly often. Therefore, I judge him positively. Neural Shroud. Good friend. Thank you. Very good friend. Appreciate it. Xeno Gothic. Thank you. Very good. Very good. And then myself. Obs. What else we got? We got some likes. We got some retweets. We doing this. Pretty normal amounts. Oh, shit. Do you see this? Oh, shit. Michael Siebert only just followed me. I'm so offended he hasn't been following me up until now. But then again, I'm only just learning right now that I have not followed him. So that's very rude of me. So look, Michael Siebert and I are now friends. It's official. You're watching it here, for folks. There you go. That's the beautiful thing about YouTube live streams. You make friends. We were looking at each other on Twitter. We passed by each other in the hall a few times. Michael Siebert and I. We saw each other. We checked each other's words out here and there. I knew he knew who I was. I saw Michael Siebert checking out my words here and there. I knew he was looking my way. I saw him a few times around the schoolyard. I was like, damn, Michael, those words, they be looking pretty good. But then we both looked away. No big deal. Not that interested. You trying to follow me, bro? You trying to follow me, bro? No. Playing it cool. We don't want to follow each other. Nah, we're not interested. We're not friends. Nah. Stare down. Very awkward. Very tense. Could have turned at any moment to fisticuffs. And we risked it. There was a major possibility of Michael Siebert and I never ever becoming mutuals on Twitter. Could have been a great relationship lost. A great relationship never ever formed. Could have been. But we'd live streamed. And in live streaming, a new bond is formed. A new threshold is crossed. A Rubicon. You cross it with a person. You just feel like you know them a little bit better. And they feel like they know you a little bit better. And then the distance is closed. And the mutual is established. Michael Siebert and I, now mutuals. It's official. And unless he pisses me off really fucking badly, I'm not going to unfollow him. I'm a loyal mutual for the most part. Unless you're a fucker. All right, we got some other followers. Good. This is good. Good news. Okay. All right, well, external validation is relatively decent levels. My approval from social peers is within acceptable levels. Therefore, I feel vindicated and like my life has some amount of meaning. So therefore, good. I can continue talking now. All right, Crypt says, okay, maybe. All right, we got the maybe from Crypt, people. We might be having Crypt on the live stream. Assuming this is the Crypt. This might just be some other Crypt. All right, Crypt, I'll add you to my long list. I have a master list. You'll hear from me soon. I'll hit you back up and I'll try to set something up. I'll try to, if you're on the fence, I'll try to push you over to this side of joining me on the stream. And Goldfire retweeted. Thank you. Very good. Very good. What do I make of Spandrel? I've never read Spandrel. I've heard of him, though. I've seen him linked on Xenosystems, but I never really got... To be honest, I never really got too deep into, like, the reactosphere. But I might look a little bit more. I might check it out a little bit. You know, just looking. Don't tell anyone, but... is he my boyfriend now? No, he's not my boyfriend. I think you heard Michael Siebert has a partner, okay? And you all know I'm a happily married man. Bioleninism, yeah, I've heard of that. That does sound interesting. Actually, I was just talking with someone recently, yesterday, actually. Someone I hung out with in London was saying that Spandrel's idea of bioleninism is kind of similar to some of the stuff I've written about, like the sociology of leftist activist groups. So I haven't read it, but sounds interesting. Married to the grind, baby. All right, this was fun. I'm out of here. I'm running out of steam. I don't want to torture you folks too much longer. I like torturing you a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I really like torturing you, but just a little bit within certain bounds, within certain temporal bounds. This is not, you know, things are pretty templex, but come on, they're not too templex. Unfortunately, in the real world, some things actually do have beginnings and ends. It's a rather unfortunate fact. Thank you, Jackbot. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you, Finargle. Thank you, Gullfire. Thank you, Ferdinand Birdhard. Thank you, Marco Costa. Thank you, Crypt. Thank you, Yitzhak. Thank you, Gift of Truth. Don't you dare say Crypt has nothing to say. Crypt has things to say. Check his Twitter. Good Twitter. Recommend. Gullfire. Goodbye. Gullfire 2, I should say. Thank you. And goodbye. Tell Gullfire 1 that I also said thank you. Exogen Time. Thank you. Alice Farmer. Your comments to me are getting to be a little testy, let's say, but it's okay, Alice. We're tight. Thank you for hanging out with me, and goodbye. Saturday's Child. Take it easy. Thank you. I wish you the best. Who else do we got in the house, or did have in the house? Davez. Thank you. Goodbye. That's all the main people. All right, everyone. I'm out this bitch. See you later. Wish you the best. Good luck. Have fun. But don't do anything I wouldn't do.